Hi everybody, John here. I'm here just between staycations. Just come back from Hay on Wye, and next week, at the end of next week, we should be going off to somewhere else. Where is that? I don't know, just somewhere in the middle of Wales. Again, another place that I probably can't pronounce. Anyway, before I do that, I just wanted to show and talk about some of these records. Last video I showed some records and spoke about my, this sort of draw that I've had to the sound of Mellotron, and one or two records that I showed were sort of fairly Mellotron rich. So these records that I'm going to show now aren't necessarily Mellotron rich, should we say, but they are certainly very proggy, and yeah, it's just the next in the large amount of prog records that I've acquired over lockdown. I think where I'm going to start now though. Okay, I'll start here. This is a record that some people may be familiar with. This is Goblin. I think it's a second album called Roller. It's just a reissue. It's one that I've had my eye on for a long time. Again, it's not a record that you see about very often, and I'd sort of thrown in the towel of sort of waiting to find an original that I wanted to pay for. So this is one that I asked Father Christmas to bring me at Christmas, and he did. I haven't listened to it as much as I'd like to, but I'll get there more. So as far as I understand, Goblin, they mainly have made sort of ambient sounding film score music. Before they were Goblin, they were a band called Cherry 5. Now, the original Cherry 5 album was nicely sent to me by Rob Walker when I won a prize in his contest, a couple of years ago I think it was now. And that record is really, really good. It is up there with my favourites in terms of prog, I think. And so I've been curious about, learning a bit more about Goblin, especially this album, because I think it's thought of as being one of their best. To see, how it compares with what they were doing just a year or so before. Here's an album, another reissue by a band called Asia Minor. It's called Between the Flesh and the Divine. This band is French. There's a nice gatefold here. Great prog. It's numbered apparently. It's number 985 of 1,000. So there you go. again, yeah, this is. I think normally I would be really deep into this, but I guess it's simply because, yeah, I've been deep into Mellotron that this one hasn't really kind of caught my attention so much. I mean, there's plenty of Mellotron on this, just not. There's plenty of keyboards on this, but not. It's not Mellotron, I guess. Anyway, see what you think when I play a little needle drop. I went to a record fair. I think it must have been about a month or two ago now, sort of right at the tail end of lockdown, where it's starting to ease here in Wales. It was in a place called St Cyrus School, which I think is in Dinas Powys, on the way into Cardiff anyway. And I picked up one or two records there. This was one of them. So this is Todd Rundgren's Utopia. Adventures in Utopia it's called. So Todd Rundgren with Roger Powell, Kasim Sultan and John Wilcox. That's another gatefold. And as with most music that features Todd Rundgren, it's fairly sort of, full on music. He packs as much music into his records as he can. It seems to be my impression anyway. But this is great. I think one day I'll really get into him and disappear for a few months. Just haven't got there yet, but this was great to find. I picked it up for, I don't know, it wasn't very much at all, £2 or £3 I think. record I bought from that particular record fair is this. This is Nectar, Magic is a Child. I don't know if this was ever a gatefold or not, but this is a simple record. I understand that the young lady on the front is the model for that was actually Brooke Shields. Kind of read that everywhere. This is a little bit different for Nectar because I think it's the one where their main vocalist and songwriter had left, so it's the first album that they'd made without him. So it's a little bit of a step down. If I remember right, if memory serves me right, it's the album that actually came out after the recycled album, which is, I showed that actually in my last video. So yeah, and it is a bit of a step down. Not a bad record. What can I tell you? Oh, you hear it for yourself. I mean, that recycled album is really sort of to the point. It's really in your face. This one is a little bit less so. I don't know if I plan to get any more records past this particular point or not. Seems to me that Nectar sort of, take a dive after this in terms of, what they produce and everything. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Came home from the record fair with a copy of this. It's, I think, the third studio album by The Nice. It's the only one of theirs I didn't have. I've had the first two. I actually quite enjoyed them, and I've never seen this one about. It's not in the best condition. The cover's fairly beaten, but it plays okay. I think I'd pick this out of the pound box. You can't go wrong really, can you? This is one of his more popular albums, I believe. It's a little bit different from a lot of his work, but it's actually quite nice. Quite enjoyed this. I particularly like the gimmick cover. So you've got your inner sleeve, and then you've got this shiny bit that you roll up, and if you place it in the right place on the record, you can see the image. I'll do a little demonstration of that. Yeah, I don't know if this is the the case on all these records, but on this particular one there's a strip of bumps, which I'm assuming is Braille. I was wondering if all copies of this album have this strip of Braille on the inside. I suspect it says Rick Wakeman, No Earthly Connection in Braille. I don't know. You can see it there. I expect it was, at the very least, it was owned by somebody that could read Braille, I'm sure. Next I'm going to show a CD. So this is, I think I spoke about this in one of my recent videos before I'd got it. This is an EP by Ritual. Now, Ritual are a Swedish band that I've liked for ages. And yeah, I think that the last album that they did came out, I could be wrong, but I think it was around about 2010 maybe. And when I was looking up to talk about them recently, I discovered that they'd released this EP, and I think, yeah, the idea is that this EP is actually part of a new album that's on its way, and they've been promising this album for years. So I was overjoyed when I found out they'd released this EP. And apparently, just reading up on the internet just now before this video, I see that there's an article a bit about them in, I think, Prog magazine of last month. I haven't seen that, so I hope to be able to get hold of that and read it. So Ritual are quite unique, I suppose. They've got a very sort of lively feel. They often use a lot of acoustic type instrumentation. It doesn't always have to be that way, but a lot of their music is like that. And I think this coming album is going to be a concept album, if I understand right. So yeah, I'm really glad to have found that. I've got it in time. Looking forward to the next album, and I really hope they release it on vinyl, because all their albums up until now have been just released on CD. I think even this was just released on CD. But I'd love to get a new album on vinyl. Last but not least, shout out to Pete. Pete has been going to lots of record fairs. Quite envy him actually, and I wish I had the opportunity to do it as much as he does. I showed the first album, the second album by this band, Lone Star, in my last video. Lone Star were a Welsh band. They're sort of described as being prog, but they are quite sort of classic rocky as well, I suppose. And if you remember in my last video when I spoke about their second album, I said about how, yeah, they really sound like Robert Plant solo work. And anyway, so Pete obviously saw me speaking about them, and he picked this one up at a record fair and sent it to me. It's their first album, simply called Lone Star, and yeah, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much for sending this, Pete. It was really, really good of you. What was I going to say about this? I've listened to it quite a lot. The first track is a cover by the Beatles, She Said, which is I think from the Revolver album, isn't it? But otherwise, a lot of the music on this really does reflect, I think, their passion and their interest for Led Zeppelin, which is interesting because the album that came out after this, I said, it sounds very much like Robert Plant's solo work, whereas this is much more Zeppelin inspired. It's a different vocalist on this, and I think it's a little bit heavier, or the sort of heavy guitar bit is a bit closer to what Zeppelin were doing. And there's even a track on here that, yeah, it's almost more or less a direct copy of Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin. When I was listening to this, I was surfing on my computer and looking at Greta Van Fleet, thinking, I'd like to get their new album. I haven't got it yet. I got their first album that came out a couple of years ago, and I thought to myself, well, actually, if somebody had played this and told me this is Greta Van Fleet, I wouldn't question it. I'd just assume, all right, well, that's really good. I really like that. So yeah, Rob in Boston, I know you like Led Zeppelin, and you also like Greta Van Fleet. You want to give this one a try, this record. Come out in 76, so it's of its time, but I recommend you listen to this with half an ear of, cocked, listening to Zeppelin-esque music. It's a great record. Thanks again, Pete, for sending that. Very, very kind of you. Okay, so I think that's just about all I was going to show. I'm planning on slotting in a few needle drops on this one, and whether it'll be my next video or the one after that, I really want to show my Scandi prog. I've got so many great, really good Scandinavian or Nordic progressive rock music, much in the vein of the Skogsprog, the progressive rock from the woods. I love that stuff. Lots of mellotron, lots of flute, lots of melancholy and foreboding in the style of the music and everything like that. It's what I've been dining on for the past half a year at least, so I look forward to sharing that and speaking about it. Okay, everybody, check out my next video. Hope everyone's doing well. See you again soon. Thanks, bye.